All right. As I said, by all accounts, Harden will be traded at some point. And so I think the interesting sort of player for this team is Tyrese Maxey. And Joel Embiid said earlier, I'm paraphrasing here, if I'm on the team, we have a chance. And so you sort of look at any potential Harden deal, and I think it's unlikely they get a star player back, right? They may get a draft pick, they may get a couple role players, but it's unlikely they get a star player back. So who then gets elevated? It's Tyrese Maxey. And so the two swing factors to me are Tyrese Maxey and the coaching of Nick Nurse. How many curveballs can he throw in the playoffs? I think with Joel Embiid, they're going to win a lot of games. They're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. With Tyrese and Tobias and DeAnthony Melton, like, they got a good team. They have a really good team. But the swing factors, like, can they get to that sort of tier one contender pool, and can they get to the second round and be in a position to win that round and be in the conference finals? Like, it's going to be Maxey. And so there's a few things that Nick Nurse said, but I do want to start with the playmaking. He averaged 3.5 assists last year, and I think that's the biggest swing factor, because is this guy, a supercharged version of a Lou Williams, Jordan Poole, Tyler Hero, right? All these guys that he's sort of been compared to. If he can elevate the playmaking, that makes him a completely different player.
I want to see, and we saw some growth last year, so I don't want to sell him completely short. Second half of the year, he did get a little bit more decisive with his reads. I do want to see what that leap is going to look like. I was perusing Second Spectrum a little bit earlier today. I was like, okay, it doesn't feel like he's a super aggressive passer. I know that's going to be one of the next steps for him. What is he doing on skip passes in particular? So looked it up, 18 skip passes in his rookie year, 19 the year after that, 20 last year. We haven't seen the big leap in that regard. And then going through the film, it's placement stuff, it's velocity stuff, going left, it's two-handed, it's a little soft on the pass and stuff like that. And I think depending on what lineups he's going to be in, I want to see if he's able to take a step in with that specific pass. Because I think right now he's very firmly in the I will take what the defense gives me camp, which isn't a bad thing inherently. He can get downhill whenever he wants to against a switch. He can get to step backs against bigger players. He chews up space very quickly against the drop. And we saw early on in that Celtics game, you play deep drop against him, he's flowing right into a pull-up three. So like, he has those kind of answers. I think the playmaking boost is what's going to take him from I take what the defense gives me and does it well to you're going to do what I want you to do. And I think if he makes that kind of step, then I think the ceiling raises quite a bit for Philadelphia.
I think the biggest thing that stood out for me with Tyrese Maxey, quick decisions, very little hesitation. I know it's just preseason, but there were no moments like last year where the set may be for me, but I don't actually know where I'm supposed to attack. So I swing the ball, and now it's like, Tyrese, that was for you. You probably should have attacked there. And he had those moments where now he's attacking. You guys bring up the passing and the playmaking. I think his scoring is going to, and especially if James Harden gets traded, it's going to make defenses potentially guard him differently. And so I don't think it's going to be apples to apples like Jason Tatum, but you remember the progression from Jason Tatum gets drop defense to, oh no, we need to send more help towards Jason Tatum, and the playmaking that he was able to make after that. Can Tyrese Maxey do enough to make defenses change how they guard him? And does that now open things up for him and the Sixers as far as the playmaking goes? I think that's going to be the big key. And if there's a Harden trade, I think it's to elevate Tyrese Maxey and to give him that role and that comfort.
I think there was certainly an element of being deferential, specifically to Harden. And Nick Nurse talked about how even like on outlet passes, where Tyrese would get an outlet pass and he would wait for Joel, or he would pass it over to James and then just go to his spot. Where Nick Nurse is like, my point of emphasis with him this preseason and in the offseason has been, I want you attacking in transition. You're a one-man fast break. You're talking about eating up space. Well, in transition, that's the best time to eat up space with that speed, right? So he wants some attacking in transition. He talked about his playmaking. You bring up the skip passes, which is interesting because that's one of the things Nick Nurse talked about. He's like, I watched film all summer with him on pocket passes and the skip pass to the corner. Like we're looking for some growth there as a playmaker. And then the other interesting thing was, and this goes on Steve's point about him as a scorer, Nick Nurse is like, I want you to shoot more. I want you to shoot more. You're a great shooter. I mean, this was a guy that shot 42.7% from three 2 years ago, last year on over 6 attempts a game, over 43%. He's like, I want you to shoot more threes. You're that good of a shooter. So I think in a even more prominent role, I think it's natural that we're going to see a scoring pop. And as a product of that scoring pop, to Steve's point, you are going to see more help. You're going to potentially see the big higher up, and then all of a sudden he's making plays, and potentially those assist numbers go up. On the Nick Nurse front, do you guys have any opinions about like him as that X factor of a coach? If he's getting buy-in from this group, what that would sort of look like? How does that manifest itself in terms of, as Joe Mazzulla would say, in terms of curveballs within a playoff series?
I'm kind of in a weird place within, like, honestly, I'm waiting to see what the eventual Harden return will be, just so I have a firmer take on it. Because heading in, it's like, okay, I know Nick Nurse will throw out a lot of different things, particularly defensively. And then I look at Philadelphia's defensive personnel, and it's like, well, how much is unlocked with this group and how much he's going to be willing to do with this group? And offensively, I think when he first was hired with Toronto, some of the movement stuff popped. And then you looked at the end of the Toronto stretch, it's like, well, they have like 1.5 movement shooters. They can't really do much more than what they're doing right now. I do think there's more shooting with this Philadelphia group. So maybe the offense gets a little bit more versatile, especially depending on what the Harden return is going to be. I do still wonder exactly what the defense is going to look like, how they maintenance Joel. I think he's very good in the drop. He can play higher up, but how much do you want to put on him during the regular season? And if he's not as scheme versatile as you want him to be during the regular season because you're going the maintenance route, how much overall versatility does this group have? So I'm still kind of in wait and see mode.
That's fair.
I think to JJ's point, there was a possession in that game where I don't think it was a shot clock violation, but Philadelphia was flying around defensively, and you got Kelly Oubre trying to dig the ball out of Jaylen Brown's hands. And that's where I was like, okay, there's some buy-in here. Like, I know it's preseason, but these guys are flying around. Patrick Beverley's only going to allow so much. PJ Tucker's only going to allow so much defensively. I think that's going to go up. I think some of the wiggle room that a Maxey, a Tobias Harris, a Kelly Oubre may feel as far as we can do things offensively, that also may elevate the buy-in defensively. So I think having a fresh start, a fresh voice could impact, and now you see a team elevate. Every year we see a team that may have some question marks, may not have as much talent, kind of elevate because we get it, we do what we do, we have an identity. I don't know if they're there yet, but I do see how that could be an avenue for them.
That's a fair point. I mean, even last night, I know. Again, there's no Harden, but we saw Patrick Beverley pick and rolls. We saw Tobias Harris pick and rolls. We saw Kelly Oubre pick and rolls. Human nature, give me the ball a little bit, and I'll probably have a little more buy-in defensively. And I remember that specific possession because I called it out on the broadcast. It was very Toronto Raptors-esque from those really good teams, and obviously the championship team. Just the intuitive scrambling person to person. Pat Bev with an unbelievable closeout on Jaylen Brown at the end of the shot clock, and Oubre knocked it out of bounds with whatever 1.2 on the shot clock. But it will be possessions like that. Like, how much buy-in can you get to that? How much communication is there on this team? And potentially, and I'm glad you brought him up, potentially Tobias Harris as another swing factor, right? I think last year in particular, because Doc talked a lot about this, and I had a bunch of their games last year, and he asked a lot of Tobias in terms of sacrifice, and in terms of usage, play calls for you. Like, there were so many possessions throughout a game where Tobias is just in the corner, and that's probably not the best use of Tobias Harris. And so how much Nick Nurse involves him in trying to get downhill and potentially posting, in running away action so he can get into the paint, that's another thing that I think will potentially help maximize whatever this roster ends up being. Guys, went a little over on time, but appreciate you guys. We will see you in a couple weeks. This has been the Old Men of the Three Things, and this has been the Dunker Spot. Nekias Duncan and Steve Jones. Appreciate you guys.